Afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the second episode of the Stars and Scrubs podcast, powered by Sharp Sports Network. I'm your host, Joe Biewer, and I have my right-hand man, Walker, with me here today to talk some XFL. Really appreciate all the support we've received on the first video. We did a Guess Who game at the end of that, and the person that was who was supposed to be guest was Josh McCown of the Chicago Bears. We had a bunch of people guess correctly, and we ran through a randomizer of the people's names. Mr. Robert Williams guessed pretty much right away. It was pretty dope that he guessed Josh McCown right away. If you want to go ahead and message us on Twitter at SharpSportsNet, claim whichever prize you would like. Really appreciate you guessing and enjoying the game that we have. We're here to talk some XFL today. We're going to have another game at the end of this as well. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see some of people's takes in the comments. We're here to talk some XFL. A lot of people got signed to the NFL, which to me was a little bit shocking after only playing 5 or 6 games in the XFL. I'm really interested to hear Walker's side of it as well. Let's jump into it. 3 guys really stood out for me today, which I wanted to pick these guys for this video. PJ Walker, Jordan Ta'amu, and Donald Parham, arguably one of the top 3 in their categories as far as production. For me, PJ Walker was the one that actually made the most sense. So let's just start there. Houston Roughnecks quarterback, standout player, 5-0 record, undefeated in the league, led the league with 1,338 passing yards. Just really a dominant quarterback. 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 104 passer rating through those games, 65% completion rating. It seemed like he was the most NFL ready. He's a pocket quarterback. He wasn't too much on the run. I really expected him to get signed. Now, where he got signed was a little bit interesting to me. The Panthers just signed Teddy Bridgewater. So signing PJ Walker to I'm not sure if they're a little bit hasty on Teddy Bridgewater, but having PJ Walker come in as the backup, I expect to see him play this year in that starting role. Bridgewater took over for the Saints last year with Drew Brees' injury, kind of came in and did his thing, actually, which was really surprising after that terrible injury in Minnesota, kind of bouncing back and being that Showtime quarterback that he used to be. PJ Walker kind of slotting into this is a little bit interesting for me with DJ Moore on the team, Curtis Samuel, those streak route and slant cross route type of receivers. I think this is a great spot for PJ Walker. He's one of the only people that got signed to the NFL that I actually agree with was ready and would actually put an impact to a team. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. I think PJ Walker could actually have a standout year if he's given playing time.
Yeah, I kind of like what you said about him. I like the kind of pocket quarterback, yes, maybe not, a Lamar Jackson sort of running sort of quarterback, but regardless, he does have the elusiveness in the pocket to kind of avoid those sacks. Even in the NFL, I agree he's NFL ready. I don't know if he is going to, at any point in this year, be a starting quarterback. I think that he would just be a really good complement to a guy like Teddy Bridgewater. And Bridgewater coming out of that New Orleans Saints offense where they like to run the Taysom Hill, Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Brees all on the offense at the same time. He might have picked up a thing or two that he can share in Carolina, and maybe we'll see both of them on the field together. Maybe some wildcat, maybe some strange plays and some fun trickery to see out of the Carolina Panthers this year. Regardless, though, that division is going to be one of the toughest in the league this year. I think it's going to be a nightmare division. So many close games I would expect to see between teams, like Tampa, Carolina, like Tampa, Atlanta. I think Carolina, if everything goes right for them, obviously with Run CMC, they could give New Orleans hell on the road, even at home. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that division as a whole. But with PJ Walker there, I think that actually is a really strong play for them. I agree he's NFL ready, and I think he might he could start a game or two this year, even if Teddy's healthy. But I don't know if that's something that we're gonna expect to see.
Yeah, it's also going to be interesting to see because they did have Will Grier there as a backup as well. So I'm going to be interested to see if PJ Walker is the second string or the third string.
Yep.
After coming off of such a dominant performance here, Will Grier didn't really play too well last year after coming out of college. Only played a few games. I think the signing of Teddy Bridgewater is going to give this team a little bit of life. Teddy Bridgewater is a very big pocket quarterback. He is not mobile whatsoever. It's going to be interesting to see if they want to stay that route or if they want somebody who has that agility to kind of, maybe run with Christian McCaffrey on a screen pass route, kind of elude some defensive tackles and, kind of give Christian McCaffrey more space. It's going to be interesting to see what they want to do. For me, the stars in this trade were PJ Walker and the Carolina Panthers. I don't really think there were too many scrubs in this trade. The XFL obviously not being able to be played the rest of the year, so we really didn't get to see too much of the upside that PJ Walker had. But throughout the 5-6 games that he played, the upside was flashed 9 times out of 10 in those games. It was pretty ridiculous what he was able to do, even against some of the arguable top defenses in the XFL. PJ Walker, a star. Not too many scrubs in here for me. Here's the interesting one for me. Jordan Ta'amu, 3rd in the league in overall passing, 1,050 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions through 6 games, 72% completion percentage, but very mobile. He actually was 7th in the league in rushing over some running backs with 41 attempts for 217 yards and a touchdown, averaging 5.3 rushing yards per attempt. It's very interesting to me that he got signed, especially in the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes obviously isn't going anywhere. They have a guy like Matt Moore who was able to step in when Mahomes got injured and really kind of command the offense for those game or two when he had that knee injury. Jordan Ta'amu does not fit in this offense for me. I don't think that this is something where he's going to get much playing time at all. I think this is more of a develop his throwing arm with Patrick Mahomes so he can be that Russell Wilson type of quarterback, because I don't think, even from watching the games, that Ta'amu was really there. He didn't flash touchdown upside. He had one big game in the XFL where he had 40 fantasy points. From a DFS perspective, the Chiefs are not the good spot for him in this. It's just not the best spot. I would have rather seen him go to Carolina and PJ Walker come to the Chiefs, if I'm being honest. For me, I think Jordan Ta'amu, we won't see him in the NFL. We won't see him play too many games. We won't see him start a lot. I think this is a bad signing. And I'm not too very fond of Jordan Ta'amu's play style. I understand the whole big heart. He has got a big heart and he puts it all on the field. I just didn't see too much when I was breaking down the XFL for Sharp Sports Network. I didn't see too much upside. We'd never played him. The fantasy point production just wasn't there for the offense. He had the weapons, but they were primarily a running team when you saw it, and whether it was him or the other running backs on the team, I just don't see. I don't see it here. What is your take on that, to be honest, from what you've seen?
He was nothing but a GPP play week in and week out. He was a lot of people's top GPP play week in and week out because the upside's there, but it's not. It's a very low floor, high upside sort of a play, in my opinion, and that's how it was for every week we had in the XFL. Every single week he was just a GPP play or a kind of a dangerous punt early on when he was a cheap salary QB. Regardless, I think the only way that the Chiefs can become the stars of this signing are if they do develop him and they look to dump him. He's not somebody that I think is going to carve out a strong role, like a Sean Hill or something like that, where they're a strong backup QB to a good one. He's obviously not taking Mahomes' job. Let's get that clear. It's pretty obvious. But I just don't see him carving out a role there that's going to make him like a permanent solidified backup QB to a guy like Patty Mahomes. I think this is more of a develop him, and then dump him off to a team that needs a QB, whether they need a starter or backup remains to be seen. But I think that's the only way that they're going to win out on this is if they develop him, let him get tucked under Mahomes' wing, make him a little bit better, and then dump him off and get something that the team really needs.
He reminds me a lot of Mitchell Trubisky this year, and it's hard for me to say that as a Bears fan.
But post-injury Trubisky,
the post-injury Trubisky, where it was a lot of running for a few yards, barely throwing. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense for me. Jordan Ta'amu, this trade is a full scrub trade, in my opinion. Full scrub trade. I think this is a terrible signing by the Chiefs when they have a pocket quarterback in Matt Moore who has flashed upside down in the league for a long time. Jordan Ta'amu, this is either a very big developmental thing and a dump off for some salary, or this is just a big mistake. So, last for me in the most, probably arguably the interesting one for me is Donald Parham of the Renegades getting signed by the Chargers. Now, when we played DFS over here on DraftKings for XFL, there was no tight end position. Everybody was classified as a wide receiver. This signing makes literally no sense if they're planning on using him as a tight end. Hunter Henry was top 3 in tight ends last year. He was extremely dominant in the red zone. I don't see Parham stealing tight end work from Hunter Henry unless they're planning on running 2 tight end sets like the Bears do. So for me, he was dominant though. as a wide receiver, I think that's where he should be. He's 6'8", he's 220 pounds. He's only 22 years old as well. He's very young. He had 24 receptions for 307 yards and 4 touchdowns for the Renegades. He was a very, very good player. He was the only tight end out of the league leading receivers. He was the only tight end with over 300 yards, the only tight end with over 3 touchdowns. He almost led the league in receptions. He's very dominant and could be kind of a wide receiver. I mean, he could be classified as a wide receiver. He's fast. I've seen some of the highlights. He's very fast. So for me, I think this is going to be good if they line him up on the opposite side of Hunter Henry. If they line him up on the opposite side of Hunter Henry, I think this is going to be a great trade. Now, we don't know who the quarterback is yet, so it's going to be really hard to say if he's going to have any impact. But this is the one player that I think is going to actually make a difference if they use him properly. He's very big. He's very young. He's got a chip on his shoulder coming out of the XFL at such a young age. I think this is a great spot if they use him properly.
Yeah, I hear you on the use. The use is going to be very interesting. I mean, he's tall. I mean, he's similar to Jimmy Graham in his build, and it's really insane to just see somebody that size, because the athletic ability at that size is going to be much less impactful, just because he does have that size advantage on a lot of the guys that are going to be lining up against him. I definitely am concerned for this Chargers team as a whole. I have a lot of Chargers fans that are close friends of mine, and I know they don't like the conversation. A lot of them do love Phillip Rivers. A lot of them were ready to see him go. Regardless of that, I think that this receiving core, as of now, again, we don't really know who the starting QB of the Chargers will be this upcoming season. I do think this receiving core takes a big hit. I think Hunter Henry takes a big hit with no Phillip Rivers. I think that this is going to become Melvin Gordon's show again here. It's going to be tough to say that, because I do expect them to be a pretty rough team this year, so I expect them to be trailing, so they're not going to be able to run the ball most likely in the fourth quite a bit, just from what I'm foreseeing for this year. But regardless, early on, I expect them just to be ground and pounding with Melvin and Austin Eckler there in the backfield. So it's going to be pretty interesting this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to also see if Hunter Henry, he's a very dominant tight end, and if he can kind of model for Donald Parham and kind of grow him over the next season or two, veteranship and more time under his wing at
Joe,
only
you just lagged. What did you just say? Sorry.
No, I said if he can get some more time with Hunter Henry, he's only 22 years old. He's got so much work that he could be putting in right now to be sent off to another team that is in need of a tight end. We see the same thing happen in Tampa Bay when they run Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. They're both tight ends. This could work, or it could be a dump off. Those are the only two.
Yep. I just realized I said Melvin Gordon. I meant Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson. I think Jackson's going to take over, and they're going to continue doing that 2RB set. I caught myself. I was like, wait, that didn't sound right. Melvin Gordon to the Broncos now. That Justin Jackson and Melvin Gordon, and Austin Eckler. It's going to be weird not seeing Melvin Gordon in that Chargers blue and yellow, but regardless, I think that they're going to continue that sort of a two-back set there with Justin Jackson. I think he's going to take over, maybe even on some of the early downs. I don't think they're going to give Austin Eckler an over workload. I don't think they're going to overuse him. I think they're going to use him kind of similar to how they did last year when Melvin Gordon was actually playing after that long holdout that he had. But I did want to correct myself there because I knew that sounded goofy.
Yeah, I was going to say Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay is going to be something interesting to see. But
very weird signing there by the Broncos. We'll have to talk about that another time.
Yeah, nonetheless, for me, though, I can't really say if this is a star or a scrub trade until I understand kind of where he's going to fit in.
The passing game as a whole.
Yes. I mean, Keenan Allen on one side with Hunter Henry was dominant enough. Mike Williams as well, being that seam route runner. I'm not sure where Donald Parham really fits in. Like I said, I personally think just because of his age alone and his lack of experience that this has to be some sort of a developmental thing with Hunter Henry, kind of just showing him the ropes here and just making sure that, that he's ready to take the field. So for me, I'm going to leave this one open-ended. But yeah, I mean, those are the three XFL things after watching and, putting out content every single week for XFL and really studying it. Those three were the big standouts for me. PJ Walker makes the most sense. Jordan Ta'amu, for me, I'm sorry for any Jordan Ta'amu fans, it makes zero sense for me for him to even be in the NFL yet. I did not think that was a great signing. Donald Parham, for me, I think he deserves to be in the NFL, but I don't think he deserves to play yet. I think he is a wonderful talent. I think this is a great place for him to go if he is supposed to learn. But for me, I just didn't feel like there was enough XFL played We only saw 6 games. It's not that big of a sample size, if I'm being honest. The XFL was an absolute blast to watch. I think this is great to develop some of these players for the NFL. But I was actually pretty surprised that some of my top prospects that I thought were amazing didn't get signed yet or haven't yet. So I wanted to play a game here with Walker and me and everybody here on the podcast. What we're going to do is give your top 3 players, offensive players, defense, whatever. I'm going to go offense because I think that I have a nice list of players that should be in the NFL. Give your top 3 people that you think should be in the NFL, and then down below in the comments, if you agree, yes or no, and if you don't, who are your top 3 XFL players from what you watch that you think should be in the NFL? I'm interested to see and talk to you guys about this because it's actually pretty interesting to me. I'm going to start it off for me. I'm going to say that for me, Josh Johnson, quarterback for the LA Wildcats, should 100% be in the NFL. He's very similar to PJ Walker, flashed immense upside, 60% completion percentage, 1,076 yards, 11 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, 106, highest passer rating in the entire XFL. Him hooking up with Trey McBride, I think this is and Nelson Spruce. I think this is a great quarterback here. I think this is an immaculate quarterback. I think he deserves to be in the NFL for sure. I'm not sure where I would put him yet. I don't want to put him to the Jets, and then it would just be a terrible thing. I think Josh Johnson, number 1, Matt Jones, number 2, running back for the Seattle Battlehawks, 80 attempts, 314 rushing yards, second in the league in rushing yards, only one touchdown on the year. They were a lot. It was a very low scoring season for the St. Louis Battlehawks, but I think Matt Jones, arguably, in my opinion, top in elusive rating, got the most game, 3.9 average rushing yards per attempt. I 100% think Matt Jones should be in there. And then lastly, for me, I'm not going to cop out and say Cam Phillips. I'm going to go with Nick Holy. It was very interesting to watch Khalil Lewis not really get too much work and Cam Phillips just obliterate with 9 touchdowns this season on 455 yards, 31 receptions. But for me, Nick Holy kind of came out of nowhere as a slot receiver. Reminds me a lot of Julian Edelman. Just 21 attempts, 267 yards, 2 touchdowns. I love Nick Holy. I think this is a great spot. He reminds me a lot of Julian Edelman, that slot receiver who comes across the middle, just does the dirty work. I think Nick Holy, Matt Jones, and Josh Johnson 100% deserve to be signed on an NFL team. What are your top 3?
All right, well, I'm going to start by copping out and saying Cam Phillips. Cam Phillips waived by the Bills last year early on. I think it was before the season opener. It was sometime in August, but I do think that Cam Phillips deserves another shot in the NFL. We saw him kind of explode. I know the competition might not necessarily be as strong as the NFL in terms of DBs that he's going to be matching up against there in the XFL. Regardless, what we saw from him was it was unarguable. Khalil Lewis, like you said, he did not do as much as kind of just what we expected him to. Maybe he did, in fact, open up the field for guys like Nick Holy, Cam Phillips. But I definitely like the idea of seeing Cam Phillips on an NFL roster somewhere, even if it's just for 4 wide receiver sets, kind of like a Keyshawn Johnson type of guy for the Cardinals, where he's coming in on those 4 wide receiver sets and kind of just helping to open up the field for maybe another stud or something like that. And then you mentioned the other guy I want to talk about too. We have Nelson Spruce, who just was a target share monster. Just getting an absurd amount of targets. But getting an absurd amount of targets, and I think he had 2 or 3 weeks of 10 plus receptions, I believe, and he was obviously deadly in the red zone as well. So I would love to see him on quite a few NFL teams. I think that he would be a good fit on. Obviously, just like most of the world, we all saw something about. I think it was the first week he exploded. Everybody was quoting him with the Bill Belichick walking out meme or whatever, like "Here comes Bill." So I thought that was pretty funny. But I do think Nelson Spruce would definitely be a good part or a good add-on for quite a few NFL teams. And there's some where it might just be a little bit of overkill. He's a very interesting wide receiver. I wouldn't say he's a deep ball threat, but he definitely can be. I just think he's more of a kind of like you said, Julian Edelman-esque in terms of check the ball down 10 or 15 yards, let him run with it and get another 10 or 15 after the catch. So I definitely like both of them quite a bit. And the third one I want to go with is another wide receiver who is, in my opinion, maybe much less effective, but the Tyreek Hill of the XFL in Rashad Ross, who is just lights out fast. And I would love to see him. I don't care if he's returning kicks, catching balls, whatever he's doing. I just think he's a really exciting player to watch. So I would love to see him in the NFL, even if he just breaks one or two plays that are monsters a year. He's very, very exciting to watch. So I would love to see him on any roster anywhere.
It was very interesting because I thought that Rashad Ross would have more of a role with Cardale Jones at quarterback after the first 2 weeks. You kind of saw him kind of take a backseat. Eli Rogers kind of. But Cardale Jones just ended up after the first 2 weeks just kind of taking a crap. It was kind of sad to see, but, it is what it is. So what I want to do is everybody comment down below if you're on Twitter or YouTube. Let us know who your top 3 favorite players who you think should be in the NFL. Maybe leave a reason why. Just let them know. Just trying to spark some conversation. I think it's super interesting. And yeah, we really appreciate the support we've been getting on these. Next video, we're going to have another giveaway, whether it's cash, whatever it may be. We're going to have another game going as well. It's going to be super dope. So make sure you tune in for that. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button down below. Make sure you stay up to date with all the videos, notification bell, so you can know when we post the next episode of the Stars and Scrubs podcast. Appreciate all the support. Absolutely having a blast doing this. Just talking about sports again is just igniting a fire because it's going to be a while until we see some more sports again. And trust me, we got a lot to talk about. So we appreciate everybody sticking around. So yeah, thank you to everybody. And yeah, we will see you on episode 3 of the Stars and Scrubs podcast. Should be out in a few days. Appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace out.